Hello and welcome. My name is Dr. Heather Brown. I'm Director of Grant Writing and Publications at the University of Missouri-Columbia, and I am pleased to welcome you to the 4th Annual Federal Research Update webinar. This event is sponsored by the University of Missouri-Columbia, the National Association of College and University Business Officers, and the Florida High-Tech Corridor Council, an economic development initiative of the State University System of Florida. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any technological problems, issues, or concerns during this broadcast, please send an email to federalupdate@missouri.edu. You can use that same email address if you have any questions that you'd like our presenter to answer. Again, that email address is federalupdate@missouri.edu. And feel free to send your question at any time. We are monitoring the box, and we will hold the question and ask it as soon as we start into the question and answer period. I am very pleased today to introduce Dr. Nadina Gardner. Dr. Gardner is the Director of the Division of Preservation and Access at the National Endowment for the Humanities, working with grants to preserve cultural heritage collections and provide improved access to them. She was previously a Senior Program Officer in the division, and at the beginning of her career was a Program Officer in the NEH's Division of Research Programs, focusing primarily on collaborative research. Dr. Gardner, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Heather. I appreciate your introduction. And I'm delighted to be with you today to tell you about the grant opportunities at the National Endowment for the Humanities. I want to keep my comments focused today on new grant programs, changes to existing programs, changes in application deadlines, and priorities for funding, both agency priorities and priorities of the individual grant-making divisions and offices. NEH is one of the major funders of humanities research, education, and public programs in this country. We have a wide audience of applicants that we serve. I must say, though, that colleges and universities are right up there at the top of the audiences we receive applications from and give awards to. As you can see, the humanities cover a wide range of fields, including fields that actually are crossovers with the sciences. Fields such as archaeology, anthropology, there's both physical anthropology on the scientific side and cultural anthropology on the humanities side. Also linguistics, which is definitely of interest both to the sciences and the humanities. We have a chairman who is appointed by the President, confirmed by the Senate, for a term of 4 years. We also have a National Council on the Humanities, and this is a distinguished group of people who review all of the results of the peer review process. Now, I should say the peer review process is a lengthy process, and both the National Council and the chairman rely on the results of peer review in making the final determination about awards. James Leach is the chairman of NEH, and I do want to mention in particular the Bridging Cultures Initiative. This is currently the agency's largest priority, and this is really born out of the desire to see more education, research, and public programs regarding other languages, other cultures. So far, most of the grant opportunities targeting bridging cultures have been within our Division of Public Programs. They've been grant opportunities for film documentaries, for workshops, and it's logical that the agency's first intensive work on this issue would be to engage the public. The agency feels it is important to engage the public in learning about and appreciating cultures different from their own. And I'll be talking as I focus in on some specific grant programs about how those grant programs relate to the Bridging Cultures Initiative. These are the 7 grant-making divisions and offices. I do want to say, and will be saying again during the course of my comments, that in the vast majority of cases, the staff will read application drafts for grant programs, and we do encourage that you contact these particular divisions to be able to talk with a staff member, submit a draft. It's an important service that we offer. And I must say, it's one of the few things in life that's free. You get professional help, no charge. So we do work with applicants on their applications, and the same program officers who would be reading your drafts would also be recruiting the panelists for the peer review process. They know intimately all aspects of what goes into writing an application and reviewing it. As you probably know, Congress has not given us a budget yet. Like many agencies, we do not have a budget for fiscal year 2013, which means we are effectively operating on the level of the FY 2012 budget. Even a brief look at this pie chart shows you that most of the major divisions receive about the same amount through our annual appropriation. And I'd like to begin by talking about our Division of Education programs. This division has created programs that focus on deepening the intellectual curiosity of students, deepening their reflections on human experience, increasing their understanding of other cultures and societies, and living up to the duty of a responsible citizen. This is a list of the grant opportunities in the Division of Education. The criteria for any education grant includes excellence of intellectual quality. You have to ask yourself, will the project avail itself of the best humanities scholarship available? Will it deal with significant humanities topics and themes? Also, the excellence of the project design. Is the project designed to achieve its goals? Are appropriate participants committed to the project? Is a good evaluation procedure built in? And also the potential for significant results. Will the project improve significantly teaching and learning in the humanities? Will the results justify the expenditure of scarce federal dollars? As I'm sure you're hearing from many people in grant making, there's a lot of focus now, more and more I would say, on the outcome and impact of grants. And I think that that is a process that should begin as early as the grant-making process. That is, any applicant really should be thinking about making that case in the application for what he or she expects to be the real payoff, what will the impact be, and in this case, the impact for humanities learning for students. Summer seminars and institutes are among the most important projects that this division supports. They support faculty development programs for school teachers, for college and university teachers. These summer seminars and institutes can be as short as 2 weeks or as long as 5 weeks. The chosen duration of a program should allow for a rigorous treatment of a topic. Typically, these programs extend and deepen knowledge and understanding of the humanities. They should contribute to the intellectual vitality and professional development of participants. They should build a community of inquiry and provide models of excellent scholarship and teaching, and promote effective links between teaching and research in the humanities. Now, a recent change is that summer seminars and institutes now have some spaces reserved for graduate students. And I do want to let you know that currently the Division of Education is particularly interested in summer programs in foreign languages for college teachers. Generally, these have focused on literature, such as important authors, but they could focus on history, government, art, philosophy, and the Division of Education also continues to encourage programs to strengthen advanced instruction in foreign languages. And I should tell you that typically, and this has been true for many years, many of the applications that the Division of Education receives deal with American history, which pleases us very much. But we would like you also to encourage your faculty to think about programs in European or world history, art, or philosophy. The landmarks programs are residence-based workshops. I'm not going to say much about this. This is not something that I think is key toward your faculty. The next program I'd like to speak about is Humanities Initiatives for Historically Black, High Hispanic Enrollment, and Tribal Colleges and Universities. Now, these are intended to strengthen and enrich humanities education and scholarship. The grants may be used to enhance the humanities content of existing programs, develop new programs, or lay the foundation for more extensive endeavors in the future. And each project must be organized around a theme or a set of themes. There are no changes or new features of this program. Also continuing is the Enduring Questions program. And this is an opportunity to design a new course for undergraduate teaching focused on a topic. What is an enduring question? That's a good question. I can give you some examples. What is good government? Can war be just? What is friendship? What is evil? Are there universals in human nature? And all of these really are designed to stimulate thinking. If you have any questions about these grant programs, I do urge you to contact the Division of Education directly. The Division of Preservation and Access is obviously a division close to my heart. It's the division of which I'm director. We have 7 grant categories. I'm really not going to say much at all about the last 2 wonderful programs that they are. They have a very, very small applicant pool. And I would like, in fact, to focus most of what I say on our 2 high volume and high award programs, and those are Humanities Collections and Reference Resources and Preservation Assistance Grants for smaller institutions. This screen gives you an idea of the range of humanities collections, and we deal with everything, including much that doesn't appear on this list. We've made awards to digitize cuneiform clay tablets, anything that is important for humanities scholarship, education, and lifelong learning is important for us. This is our major program. It is our largest program giving major awards. The awards are currently up to a maximum of $350,000, and these are for work with collections, and you see quite a daunting list. I think there are about 10 different project activities that can be conducted under this grant program, and some of them combined in a single grant application. I'll say something about that in a minute. In the last 5 years, the average number of applications received per year has been around 220, and the average number of awards around 35, and that's a funding ratio of about 16%. I'll be giving you a few other such comments on number of awards and funding ratios as I go on. I will have to qualify this by saying, obviously, the last 2 years have been difficult, so I would say that these funding ratios are a little more optimistic than what we saw last year. I do want to say about humanities collections and reference resources that we have made awards to a surprisingly broad range of colleges and universities, from very small colleges to the major research universities in the country. So it's a program that can be very distinctly a possibility, no matter what the size of your university or college. I mentioned that it's possible to combine some of these project activities in a single request. One thing I'd like to mention in particular, and I want to mention it because, in fact, I'm surprised that more applicants haven't taken the opportunity to do this. And that is, in this grant program, which supports work on collections, offering the opportunity to establish intellectual control, whether it's cataloging rare books, arranging and describing archival collections, cataloging object collections in a museum, and digitizing collections. The surprise that more applicants haven't taken the opportunity of putting into that mix the chance to do conservation treatment on collections. This has become, in fact, more important now that we are in a digital environment. The very best digital labs I've noticed, the most experienced, don't want to digitize collection items until they've received treatment. Now, we know from a recent survey we did of grantees that the percentage of our respondents who said that the award ended up in improved conservation treatment to their objects does not match up with the percentage we know of grantees who requested conservation treatment. So that leaves us with the inescapable conclusion that many grantees probably did not know that certain items that they were going to digitize on one of our grants really needed treatment until after the grant was awarded, and essentially ended up doing that money on their own dime. So I do want to mention that this grant program does have the opportunity to, if it's conceivable within the project that's being framed, to establish intellectual control over a collection and perform conservation treatment on those selected items and digitize those objects or those texts for access. And these days, access usually means online access. I do want to mention one last thing about this grant program, and that's that in the last several years, we've seen an interesting increase in both the number and quality of applications that we've received in the history of science, the history of technology, of medicine, of the environment, and of business and economics. And we can only conclude, since we obviously don't know why people put in the particular applications they do, we can only conclude that it's because the 20th century is a closed chapter, and historians are going to town on studying the 20th century. And if you look at the great accomplishments of the United States, what are the areas that stand out most? Well, we think of science, don't we? We think of space exploration, medicine, technology. So this has been an interesting sort of a change over the last few years, and frankly, we expect to see it continue. Research and development is what its title says. It's real, true R&D. These are projects designed to develop new methods for preserving collections of any type or providing better access to them. There's a very high bar in this program. It, as I say, demands original R&D effort. We have special encouragement in this grant program for what the Division of Preservation and Access has deemed its priority areas for funding. And those are digital preservation, projects to do with recorded sound and moving image collections, and preventive conservation. And if that term is new to you, it simply means the work that needs to be done to prevent deterioration of collections, so that instead of waiting until damage occurs and conservation treatment is necessary, it targets the entire environment in which collections are held and works to find ways to improve those storage environments. Colleges and universities are a major source of our applications and our awards. I can tell you just briefly a couple of grants we've made recently. One to Wheaton College to develop lexomic tools. These are computational tools for applying advanced statistical methods to textual and literary problems. So you see, we're not shy about supporting scientific work if it's in the service of humanities research. Another award recently to the University of South Carolina created what's called a one-pass system for capturing accurately both image and sound on film in digital scanning. I'll just say a few words about this grant program. Sustaining Cultural Heritage Collections targets that last area that I mentioned, preventive conservation. And this gives awards to libraries, museums, other collecting units, many of them in colleges and universities, to essentially prolong the life of those collections by improving the conditions under which they're held. In this grant program, we offer both planning grants of up to $40,000 and full awards, implementation awards of up to $350,000. Many colleges and universities have been successful, as I've said. Some recent awards went to the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities, and that was for their Goldstein Museum of Design, which is mainly a textile museum. A recent award to Swarthmore College and to Northern Kentucky University, and also to the University of Texas at Arlington. I won't say much about education and training. This is a grant program that serves largely organizations that exist outside the college and university network. But I will say that on that the last bullet on the list that you'll see is workshops that address preservation and access topics of national significance and broad impact. And faculty can be involved in programs like that. Best to contact us if you know faculty who are interested in this grant program. Now, in spite of the title, Preservation Assistance Grants for Smaller Institutions, I would like to say we don't have a strict definition of small. There are many mid-sized colleges and universities who have been successful in getting awards through this program. In the last 5 years, the average number of awards received has been 237 awards. 237 applications, 122 awards. It's a very high funding ratio. That's 41%, probably the highest in the agency. And that's because this is, quite deliberately, an outreach program. These are small awards, awards of up to $6,000, and they allow a college or university or other humanities collecting organization to hire a consultant to do a preservation assessment of, in the case of a college or university, the museum, library, the university archives, and to get grants to carry out, perhaps in a later award, some of those recommendations. It could be for rehousing supplies, purchase of rehousing supplies for collection items. It could be for purchasing environmental monitoring equipment. There are many things that can be done with these small awards, and we've had many organizations, as I say, including colleges and universities, that have had 3 or 4 of these awards and have therefore been able to step by step make excellent improvements in the care of their collections. So we hope that our funding ratio can get back to that level. I do have to say last year was much lower than 41%. It was, I believe, 22%. But we are trying our best to maintain this as an outreach program with as high a funding ratio as we can maintain given our available funds. This is a program I'll only briefly mention. I think it would be of interest only to the larger universities. This is a grant program we do in partnership with the Library of Congress, the National Digital Newspaper Program, and this is to digitize historic U.S. newspapers, which the Library of Congress keeps in a repository that is open, free, online. It's called Chronicling America, and it will remain permanently in the Library of Congress's collection. Typically, there is only one state partner in each state. Often, though, that does include a major state university. This is just the home page in which you can see the historic newspapers. This also is a program of interest to colleges and universities. There is a desperate need to document languages before they die, and it is estimated that by the end of this century, approximately half of the 6,000 to 7,000 languages will be extinct. There are other organizations, including foundations, that work with language revitalization, which is wonderful. Our part, what we see as our mission, is to help with the documentation of languages that really are going to die. There are people in linguistics in colleges and universities who are doing work to document languages, so if you have faculty who are interested in that kind of work, please do have them contact us. And for any of the programs you see, please feel free to contact the division, contact me. I'd be happy to talk with you about any of our programs. The Division of Public Programs is our way of reaching the public directly and reaching them with programs that have had the benefit of the best scholarship and education. So we almost see a kind of pipeline of effort in what the agency does. These are the grant programs that the Division of Public Programs offers. I do want to say that the Division of Public Programs plans to announce a new grant category specifically for digital projects. It's envisioned as a grant program to encourage the integration of new digital technologies in traditional humanities spaces, such as museums and historic sites, as well as to foster the development of innovative, standalone digital projects with rich humanities content. Examples of projects that could be supported through this new grant category: virtual field trips, which allow visitors to experience a historic site or museum collection remotely, mobile and web-based tours, interactive online games for youth and family audiences, and innovative interpretive websites. Guidelines are still being drafted, but the Division of Public Programs expects to offer 3 levels of funding: development, prototyping, and production grants. The first deadline will be June 12, 2013, with the initial round of awards planned for November 2013. So I hope there is something in that list of possibilities that faculty might be able to make use of. Let me say a few words about one of the major programs in this division, America's Historical and Cultural Organizations. These reach a wide audience and really are, I would say, some of the most important work done through this division. Museum exhibitions, websites, discussion groups, and symposia. And as you can see, some of these projects can use more than one format for reaching an audience. You'll see on this list that the Bridging Cultures Initiative is mentioned. The grant opportunities for Bridging Cultures work really has largely been through our Division of Public Programs, mainly through museum exhibitions, through film documentaries, and through workshops. America's Media Makers also reaches a large audience, and you can see here that it's really an open door to any kind of humanities discussion. Radio projects, television projects, and digital technology projects. I think that area in particular, the digital technology projects, might be something that faculty would be interested in looking at. In this category, Bridging Cultures Through Film, the projects really must be grounded in humanities scholarship. And NEH encourages innovative nonfiction stories and creative formats that will reach broad audiences. The development grants are up to $75,000 and production grants are up to $800,000. The small grants to libraries, I think, won't apply to your audience, nor NEH on the road. Incitement is an important resource for faculty to be aware of, very useful for teaching. It's, you might say, a vetted, authoritative collection of resources, websites that are of terrific use in the classroom. And for any questions about these grant programs, do please contact the Division of Public Programs. The Division of Research supports a range of programs, as you see. The major ones I'll talk about are the Fellowships Awards and Collaborative Research and Summer Stipends. The awards for faculty at historically Black, high Hispanic enrollment, and tribal colleges and universities are awards of 6 to 12 months. The awards are $4,200 per month. And these are, in this particular grant category award periods that need not be continuous. Grantees in this grant category have the possibility to work full-time, half-time, or a combination. Collaborative research is something that is of interest to faculty. I do want to mention that I think it was 2 years ago this program's deadline changed from late October to early December. And I also want to point out that this program also welcomes projects that respond to NEH's Bridging Cultures initiative. There's new language in the guidelines for this program stating, in connection with a civic discourse focus, projects might explore the role of women in America's civic life, as well as the civic role of women in other cultures and regions of the world. And I will say that around 200 applications are received annually in this program, and the funding ratio is about 20%. This is one of NEH's major grant programs and largest in terms of volume. In the last, this is fellowships. In the last 5 years, we've received an average of 1,260 applications and made 90 awards. That's a 7% funding ratio, so as you can see, it's very competitive. As with the other awards for faculty, the award length is 6 to 12 months, and the grant is for $4,200 per month. This can be in any field of the humanities. Projects that can be completed during the tenure of the award, as well as for work that is part of a long-term endeavor. I do want to check one, see if I have any other updates on fellowships. I guess not. Okay. This is not something that's open to colleges and universities, but I do want to mention simply that there are opportunities for your faculty to gain fellowships at independent research institutions. NEH makes the awards to the independent research institutions to allow for these programs. So if any of your faculty are interested in having a fellowship for research at one of these independent research institutions, please do encourage them. And I won't say much about this. This is a highly specialized program, very small applicant pool. Scholarly editions, tremendously important for research, as are translations. For these projects, I do encourage your faculty to contact the Division of Research directly. We have long experience working with this, and generally the projects that have been supported require several awards to reach their completion. As you can imagine, any reference work or work such as a scholarly edition is considerable. The award length is 1 to 3 years, and the amount of the awards vary between $50,000 and $100,000 per year. Summer Stipends is a high-volume program also. Over the last 5 years, NEH has averaged in this grant program about 953 applications, 74 awards, and that's an 8% funding ratio. Summer stipends are grants for 2 months of work, and the amount is $6,000. They are for faculty members or individuals pursuing advanced research in the humanities. They can be used for your research at any stage of development, and the faculty member must work full-time for 2 continuous months. Usually they're taken in the summer months, but alternative arrangements can be made. They cannot be used for pedagogical methods or for publication of textbooks. If you have any questions about these programs, I do encourage you to contact the Division of Research. The Office of Federal-State Partnership is not something to which your faculty can apply, but I do want to mention that there is a State Humanities Council in every state and territory, and there are the possibilities in some of them for support. So you might check with your state or territorial council. You can find the contact information on the NEH website to see if there are any awards through that state council for faculty projects. This gives you an idea of the volume of the work done through the state councils. And this is the contact information for our Office of Federal-State Partnership. The Office of Challenge Grants. This is a wonderful opportunity for colleges and universities to do really groundbreaking, sometimes in a literal sense, work in improving humanities instruction and learning. There are 2 grant programs, challenge grants, and a specific program, challenge grants, for 2-year colleges. Before I get into the types of funding, let me just say about these 2 programs. There is one interesting change, and that's in the matching requirement. All of the challenge grant awards require gift money to be raised to match the NEH award. In years past, that match was 4-to-1. In response to the difficult economic conditions, that was lowered not too long ago to 3-to-1. That 3-to-1 match still applies in the Challenge Grants program. However, in the newer program, Challenge Grants for 2-year colleges, that requirement is reduced from 3-to-1 to 2-to-1. So that makes it easier to raise the amount of gift money necessary to match the NEH award. The deadline for applications from 2-year colleges has been moved from early February to February 20th, 2013, to allow applicants time to submit drafts after the holidays, and notification occurs in August. Now, these are the types of funding that can be requested for a challenge grant. There are no stated priorities. The program supports excellence in the humanities in all disciplines. The Office of Challenge Grants, however, does have a strong record of funding in the area of conservation, endowing conservator positions in a college or museum, a college or university library or museum, endowing conservation programs and activities, and I can mention some are partnerships between a university and a museum. For instance, the University of Tulsa and the Gilcrease Museum, the University of Delaware and the Winterthur Museum, Buffalo State and NYU have received endowments for fellowships. Challenge grants have also been made for renovating or creating conservation labs, endowing treatment, and purchasing conservation equipment. And I must say, I know from experience, preservation equipment is very expensive. So it is truly something for any museum and library to think about. This office also encourages digital projects or digital elements within a larger project, perhaps endowing a curator, archivist for born digital materials, or endowing humanities programs that include creating digital materials and posting them on a website. I can mention one example of that last type of funding, and that is the Encyclopedia of Philosophy, which is a product of Stanford University. It received a challenge grant to endow the encyclopedia, which is an online resource. So you may not think of what most people would call a website as something to endow, but these days online resources are major, major enterprises representing an enormous amount of work. And it's important not only to keep them going, but to update them. So an endowment allows a project like that the ability to improve over time. And I must point to with pride, that is a project that received its early funding in the NEH Division of Preservation and Access through our Humanities Collections and Reference Resources program. And it began life as a database, just beginning as a reference resource. I do want to mention one more thing, sort of an update on construction renovation. You'll see that on this, this list of types of funding. Applicants seeking support for construction and renovation should be aware, we want to make you aware, that the agency's review of such projects, which is mandated by law under Section 106 of the Historic Preservation, the National Historic Preservation Act, is a lengthy process of review. It might be a year or more before funds can be released following review by NEH. Construction or renovation cannot begin before NEH completes the Section 106 review. So that's just a word to the wise. Now this screen is a little bit out of date, or at least not applicable to the to your college community, which is 2-to-1 match. If you have any questions about challenge grants, I do encourage you to be in touch with them. I will say one last word about the screen you just saw. At this time, I would say grants may tend to be not around the $1 million mark and more toward the $500,000 mark, at least for the time being. Now, on to our last program, the Office of Digital Humanities. This is a program that supports innovative work in service of the humanities and covers a broad range of activities and certainly every discipline in the humanities. These are its grant programs, and let me tell you a little bit about them. This is a partnership between NEH and the Deutsche Forschungsgemeinschaft, the DFG, which is more than our counterpart in Germany. In fact, it's, you might say, the National Science Foundation, NEH, and NIH all rolled into one. It's an enormous agency. This is a program that encourages U.S. Applicants, including colleges and universities, to partner with a German counterpart, a German college or university, to develop tools and infrastructure to enhance the use of digitized resources. This office also encourages applicants to submit draft applications for review. Some of the examples of work that can be done on the DFG NEH program: new digitization projects and pilot projects, the addition of important materials to existing digitization projects. Oops, sorry. I'm switching on the wrong screen. And the development of tools and infrastructure to enhance the use of digitized resources, as I mentioned. In order to encourage new approaches and develop innovative methods, and I would say in anything the Office of Digital Humanities supports, innovative is the key word, in any field of the humanities, these grants provide funding for up to 3 years in 3 areas: developing innovative methods as well as standards and best practices, developing and implementing tools, methods, and techniques for accessing and processing digital resources, and ensuring the completion and long-term sustainability of existing digital resources. Digging into data is an interesting program. Smaller applicant pool, and it's a wide partnership, as you can see, with many other funding sources. I'd encourage you to contact the Office of Digital Humanities if you have any questions about this program. This is a new program. It's just completed its last round. As a matter of fact, if I can find what the results were in that. Yeah, there were 63 applications in the first round and 7 awards. That's an 11% funding ratio. This is a new program which follows on the startup grants, actually, which I'll be talking about in a minute. These are projects that can involve implementation of computationally based methods or techniques for humanities research, implementation of new digital tools, again, efforts to ensure the completion and long-term sustainability. They can examine philosophical, practical implications of the use of emerging technologies, and they can explore new digital modes of scholarly communication. And they follow on this program, which is very popular, the Digital Humanities Startup Grants. This program received, let's see if I know how many, I guess I don't know how many applications it received. You'll find all of this on the NEH website. If you go to the home page, click on the Grants tab, and then scroll through the alphabetical list of programs. The first page you'll come to on any one of those programs will give you the funding history, the funding ratio. But these startup grants are a great opportunity. At level 1, $5,000 to $30,000. At level 2, $30,000 to $60,000 to present an innovative project on best practices, new digital tools, really all sorts of digital projects that can serve the humanities. And again, high risk, high reward. The emphasis really is on innovation. Institutes are really workshop opportunities. In addition to having your faculty considering an application to run an institute, you might also tell them to consider applying to attend one that has already been awarded. If you're interested in running an institute, it's useful to know that the format is quite flexible. It doesn't need to be a traditional format. A traditional format is usually 2 weeks in one location. It can be longer, shorter, take place in several locations. It can be a series. Some successful institutes will introduce a topic 1 year and then have all the attendees return the next year to demonstrate what they've learned. Applicants should suggest whatever format makes best sense for their institute. Oh, and actually I did see, I did have the information if anyone is interested in the startup results. Over the last 5 years, digital startups have averaged 141 applications per year, 24 awards. That's a funding ratio of 17%. I do encourage you to contact the Office of Digital Humanities if you have questions. As I mentioned, they do encourage drafts. Now, as you know, every grant opportunity comes through Grants.gov. And the peer review process is what your applicants must keep in mind. They will be judged mainly on the humanities significance of what they're doing, and equally on the quality of the project, the viability, the audience it serves. Again, besides taking up the opportunity to have a draft application reviewed, certainly, even if you can't manage that, email us, call us, talk to a program officer, and read the guidelines carefully. The guidelines are a very helpful tool. They don't just tell you the bare facts of what needs to be there, but we do try to offer advice on what should belong there. And the thing I would single out is making as compelling a case as you can for the humanities significance of your project. And if your application is not funded, do ask for the comments of your evaluators. We're happy to give them to you verbatim. The only thing we would cross out would be the name of the evaluator, and sometimes if an evaluator mentions another applicant in the same group, obviously we would mark that out. I won't go through this in detail, but I think it is important to point out that you need to make sure that you've included every technical detail that needs to be there without descending too far down into the pit of techno-speak. Just make sure that the technical section has the required language, but make sure that the narrative as a whole is approachable and that any evaluator, the educated peer review audience, would be able to understand it. Also, your application has to be something read by the National Council. And you can't assume that they would be in a certain applicant's field. So it's very important that the narrative be in good plain English. And if your faculty are interested in being peer reviewers, we're delighted to have them contact us. And you can see there how they can enter their own information on the NEH website. I want to thank you very much. I've appreciated this chance to talk with you about the grant opportunities of the National Endowment for the Humanities, and I welcome any questions you might have.
Thank you, Dr. Gardner. We're going to open this up for questions now. If you have a question you'd like Dr. Gardner to address, please send it to federalupdate@missouri.edu. Again, that email address is federalupdate@missouri.edu. Have one question here. In proposals, you mentioned that proposers are encouraged to make a compelling case for the humanities significance of their project. How much should proposers focus on the significance of the project for their community at large? So essentially the broader impacts of their project.
That's very important. As a matter of fact, I'm so glad to have that question. Obviously, this focus is different for different programs. In other words, I would have one answer, well, for instance, to the preservation assistance grants for smaller institutions. There are colleges who have in their special collections and archives collections that are tremendously important, perhaps the most important documentation of the region or locality that they are in. So that, of course, is a tremendous opportunity to hit hard the importance of the work that you're proposing for that particular place. Community can be defined in so many different ways. In a summer institute that's at a historic site, that, of course, is something for which locality is tremendously important. And anything that you can say about the choice of that locality, but linking it to what is important in the way of national themes, significance on a national level. That's actually something I've been delighted to see in so many awards that NEH has made, that a small organization or college will propose work that does focus on that locality, that community, and yet what they are able to say about what they're doing it really elevates that to the national level, whether it's a collection, whether it's a workshop, an institute, whether it's a fellowship studying some particular community. There's definitely a way to take that conversation from the locality, the importance and strength of that, to the national level.
Thank you, Dr. Gardner. If anyone has a question, please feel free to send it to federalupdate@missouri.edu. Question here, does the NEH allow for tuition remission for graduate research assistants in addition to the hourly salary?
No, we do not provide tuition remission. We can't support tuition, but we do, on many of our awards, have students working, contributing toward a project. So it is possible to compensate students who are working, graduate students, even undergraduate students, with NEH funds.
Thank you. Again, if you have a question for Dr. Gardner, please send it to federalupdate@missouri.edu. I have a question here about the digital humanities. Sometimes there's confusion about what the term digital humanities really means. Can you talk a little bit more about what the NEH means by the term?
Well, yes. I think the confusion probably is that, and this at least is my understanding of it, digital humanities really sprang mainly from the academic community. And the work that early digital humanities group was most interested in was using digital technology to further their research, to improve and enhance the kind of research they can do, and I think this has been the truly remarkable part of it, to be able to pose research questions excuse me, that could not have been posed and answered previously. One of the grant programs I passed over quickly was the Digging Into Data Challenge. That does pose the question, how do you read a million books? What do you do when you have millions and millions of digitized texts available? How do you work with them? Data mining, text mining is the way to deal with that, and that is what that grant program deals with. It is text mining, data mining in the humanities. Those are very, very much of interest to faculty members, those issues. Another thing faculty tend to be very interested in is visualization tools. Many faculty members are constructing online resources and want to find ways of essentially visualizing their research. And it's remarkable what can be done in that way. Digital humanities, I think, however, as a community, is much broader now, much broader. If you look, for instance, at the kinds of sessions you'll see at the annual meeting of what's called Digital Humanities, the conference that meets every other year in the U.S., the off year in some other country. It's a wide range, and I would say it includes equally the cultural heritage community, because libraries and archives and museums are tremendously interested in what digital technology can do for the care of their collections. So now I think it is broader, and it does make it very difficult to put your finger on what the digital humanities community is. NEH has a very broad view, and in our case, I would say we really have two areas of opportunity for work in the digital humanities: the Office of Digital Humanities and the Division of Preservation and Access. In our Humanities Collections and Reference Resources program, we support online resources of all sorts. These are database-driven projects. In our Research and Development program within Preservation and Access, we do cutting-edge R&D work. A great deal of that, most of that, is digital technology for the humanities. In ODH, obviously, Office of Digital Humanities, obviously everything is digital technology for the humanities. Generally, if something is heavily collections-based, or I should say collections-based at all, frankly, you'd first want to contact the Division of Preservation and Access with any questions. The Office of Digital Technology looks at it more broadly. For instance, they would support gaming for gaming programs for educational use. That would not be something you would come to the Division of Preservation and Access for. So NEH has taken a broad view. I have to say, what is now called the Division of Preservation and Access contains programs that have been supporting digital technology for, if you can believe this is true, over 30 years. This goes back to the earliest, we supported the earliest electronic database in the humanities, which was the Thesaurus Linguae Graecae. Still up and running. So there's a long, long history to digital technology in the humanities, and NEH has been supporting that work. We were a foundational supporter of the Text Encoding Initiative through the program that's now in Preservation and Access through R&D. We've done, NEH has done many, many things to support really the growth of digital technology in the humanities.
Thank you. Again, if we have time for a couple of more questions for Dr. Gardner, if you have any questions, please send them to federalupdate@missouri.edu. Where can we find the list of colleges and universities who have received awards for the education and research programs?
Look on our website, go to the NEH website, NEH.gov, and click on awards lists. If you look on the home page, on the lower left corner, you'll probably see recent awards. Well, you can click there and you can see other awards too. And it will show you the name of the grantee, the award amount, And it will also give you a sentence or two description of the project. So it's a kind of helpful indication of which pew should I be in? Is this a program that I might be successful in?
Thank you. Would a proposal for an institute or digitization project in U.S. theater history raise any jurisdictional obstacles with the National Endowment for the Arts?
If this is a digital resource, sorry, this is for an institute?
As said, for either an institute or a digitization project in U.S. theater history. So where's the line between the National
U.S.
Endowment?
theater history.
Yeah.
Well, anything in history is NEH. Anything that is performing arts should be directed to the National Endowment for the Arts. But if it's history of theater, that's definitely NEH. A digitization project on theater should be directed to the Division of Preservation and Access, and specifically to Humanities collections and reference resources. If that is, say, to digitize collections dealing with anything to do with theater. Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely.
Just a couple of more questions that we have time for. Can NEH grants fund foreign scholars?
In certain rare circumstances. An exception, and frankly this is the only exception I know of, the Division of Preservation and Access supports, through Humanities collections and reference resources, work to preserve or provide access to collections or to create resources. Now, on the collections side, well, no, I should say on both collections and the resources projects, we have made a few awards to U.S. Institutions, and that's an absolute must. The grantee must be a U.S. nonprofit organization or institution. But we have made awards to a few that have had foreign partners. And in those cases, it's been a project that required collections held in another country, or a database project that needed access to certain materials, certain collections in another country. And the Division of Preservation and Access does have the authority to allow that partnership and to allow the work done by the foreign partner to be compensated. But as I say, the grantee must be a U.S. nonprofit organization.
Thank you. We've got time for one last question, and the question that came in is very specific, so I'm going to try to make it a little bit more general. If someone is interested in looking at an example of a successful grant program in any of the areas that NEH funds, how would they go about requesting that information?
Information about the program itself. I would say the first thing you do is look at the guidelines, which are posted on our website. Particularly if you're not sure what part of NEH would support the work you're interested in. The guidelines will tell you everything you need to know about the program. I'm sure many applicants think they're a bit too exhaustive, or maybe exhausting even, but we do try to put everything into the guidelines to give you every scrap of information we have about what that program can support and what an application should include. So if you go to the NEH website, click on the Grant tab, which is right there on the home page, you'll get an alphabetized list of the grant programs, and that's your best source. Any questions, though, you should definitely contact the division that houses that grant program. That's where you get your real up-to-date information.
Right. Thank you very much. Any questions that come in from here on out, we'll make sure they get to Dr. Gardner directly. Thank you so much for being here, and our next speaker is going to come up at the bottom of the hour.
Thank you very much.